BXB. It's in the game!
Hey guys, it's me Ben, back with another, not sure I'm going to say quick review because I'm really not sure how this is going to turn out. But basically I'm reviewing No Man's Sky on the Xbox One, which is a strange thing considering No Man's Sky has been out for, at this point, around 2 years. And me and the guys at BXB talked about No Man's Sky a great deal when it first launched on the PS4 2 years ago in its original iteration. Obviously since then, you know, unless you've lived under a rock, you've followed the trials and tribulations of No Man's Skies. Perhaps the over-promising of certain developers such as Sean Murray on the internet and in person regarding what features and what could be expected from the game. I think if you were savvy enough and understood a bit of game development, you would be aware that there was never going to be those promises met. It was just impossible to give the players everything they hoped that No Man's Sky could be, as in the perma-game, the game to end all games, a universe full of rich interaction that would be never-ending. Instead, what we got was a interactive sandbox that was procedurally generated with millions of worlds potentially, but there wasn't always that much to do on the worlds, and what there was to do was fairly rote and repetitive between the different worlds. The environments weren't that different, the flora and fauna weren't that different. But what we've seen over 2 years is Hello Games' continued commitment to the property of No Man's Sky. Patch after patch, update after update, the game has become a more rich experience, from base building to new biomes, from new story missions to prettier clouds. And what we have after 2 years is the next update on PS4 and PC, and also its release of the game onto Xbox One, including all of those patches and features. And what we have now with No Man's Sky is a lot closer to that original promise made by Sean Murray and Hello Games. We have an experience that's far more fulfilling, with a better story, though it's more like a narrative wrapper than a true sort of point-to-point story, sort of in a traditional sense. It gives you a much better context for the things you're doing within the universe. And what you're doing is going still from planet to planet, mining resources, now building bases, maybe constructing vehicles, and then more in space with freighters and frigates. There's far too many features for me to try and list. The game at its core is still that experience that it was at launch. It is landing on a planet, it is mining and gathering resources. There's now more of a refining element to the resources and sort of transmuting them into new elements that are more profitable and more helpful. All of these tech trees and things like that have been refined greatly, but at its core, I've been dipping in and out on the PS4 version over the years. And yeah, at its core, like I said, it's still that game. And if that's not your thing, a kind of Minecraft, find your own fun experience, I don't think Next or the Xbox One version's really going to be any different for you. It's not going to be a game for everyone. The big addition, though, the big important addition for No Man's Sky in this latest update and Xbox release is the inclusion of multiplayer in a more conventional sense. Now you can actually team up in your world with up to 4 other players, or a total of 4 players I should say, so 3 other players including yourself, and you can go and explore and do those sort of tasks. Now what I noticed playing multiplayer, that there isn't really any more hooks for the multiplayer experience. It is just doing what you do in single player with some other people banging around with you. And that's good, that's bad, you know, take that as you will. It's nice that the feature is there. But beyond that, I think it's fair to say No Man's Sky has become an experience that is far more fulfilling. I always loved it. I loved the dream of Hello Games to create those 60s and 70s era sci-fi experiences that would be so well envisioned in those lurid book covers of that period. I am a massive mark for that era of science fiction, so I was always going to be predisposed to enjoy No Man's Sky, even in its most bare and threadbare form. And now that we have so much more to do with exploration, with the ship side of things, with frigates and freighters, with infinite base building, with multiplayer, with more resources than ever, with much more varied biomes, much more varied flora and fauna, crazier types of worlds, from sort of worlds that are monochromatic to worlds which have hexagonal sort of mechanized patterns all over them. The story is still in there. You can still follow that Atlas path to the center of the galaxy. Or you can go off and do whatever you want in any order that you want. You can skip all the tutorialization. Or you can just follow it bit by bit as it's pieced out to you. I wish the tutorialization was a little bit better. The game is very confusing, I would imagine, to many people from the start, especially as it's this evolved experience that has happened over the course of 2 years. That means the onboarding isn't the smoothest it could be. But I do think if you were willing to put the time in with No Man's Sky, you will find it a rich, rewarding, and actually pretty relaxing experience. Yeah, you can play it in survival mode. There are various ways in which you can play No Man's Sky now that can ramp up the difficulty with permadeath and things like that. God knows why you'd want to. For me, it's the kind of game where you set yourself... You can't deny, though, that the experience can be rough around the edges. There's definitely networking issues still happening at this time near launch with partying up. I've been kicked out of multiple attempts to connect to a party, or the party has collapsed. And then, yeah, the procedural generation can sometimes go wrong. You can get stuck in things. You can fall through things. But that never really detracts from the fun. And when you take into account the huge scope of the experience, well, I can be fairly forgiving of the odd mess up. You know, even if you die, you can always go back to your body and pick up all the resources that you had on you. That can be frustrating, especially in space. But it's sort of a pain that's worth having for such a varied and inventive universe. I really like where No Man's Sky has ended up. I'm really excited at the prospect of where Hello Games is going to take it next, with much more of a live sort of game as a service model in which they're going to be doing updates and free DLC. There are no microtransactions in this game at the moment, but the fact that everything is now in third person, which is another one of the big changes in the next update, taking you out of first to third person, which means you can see your character, all importantly, and you can customize the visuals of your character, which makes me think in the future we may see some cosmetic DLC. At the moment, though, there's none of that. But I wouldn't mind it if there was. There's plenty of value to be had in No Man's Sky, and no need to worry about things such as microtransactions. There's hours and hours and hours and oodles of fun to be had here if you're that kind of gamer that doesn't need a set narrative. Normally I am. I'm a massively narrative-focused gamer, as I've said many times before in previous reviews. I love a good story. I love a well-told yarn that's going to take me through the experience in a linear fashion. However, I love my time with No Man's Sky. I like the fact that it is a bit more experimental. I can't help but give props to the team at Hello Games and Sean Murray for creating this procedurally generated universe that is as complex and rich as it is. It's incredible the power of maths that is on display here. Frankly, amazing what they've been able to do. Things in this update, like they massively increased draw distances. How is that possible? And yet somehow they've worked their magic and made this game better than it ever was previously. So because of all of that rambling, I'm going to give No Man's Sky I'm very happy to score it this highly. I would love to see more from Hello Games. I'm looking forward to see where this game goes in the coming years. I feel like they've proven that they're going to keep supporting it, and that really pleases me. So I'm going to give No Man's Sky 4 out of 5 stars.
BXB. It's in the game.